What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
The history of this extraordinary model dates back to the 1990s, when Russia was overwhelmed by a wave of terrorist acts and localized conflicts on ethnic and religious grounds. Existing at that time Army armored vehicles with GVW of over 10 to 12 tons did not meet the requirements of anti-terror forces due to large dimensions, excessive armament, relatively low resource and high cost. At the same time, the analysis of foreign experience showed that all-wheel drive multi-purpose armored vehicles with GVW of no more than 7 to 8 tons are best suited for highly mobile structures, often operating in extreme conditions. It is not surprising that in due time all leading countries started to produce such vehicles. Following the world trends, in April 2002, the Russian Ministry of Defense, represented by the main Armored Armament Directorate, GAB2, offered the specialized enterprises of the country to join on a competitive basis the development of the technical project of the family of multi-purpose army vehicles with payload from 1 to 2.5 tons. AMO ZIL was among the chosen ones. Factory workers aimed at creating a new generation of tactical 4x4 vehicles with payload capacity of 2.5 tons with high traction and dynamic qualities, maneuverability, capable of carrying modern weapons and protection equipment. And in civilian versions the vehicles were assigned to work in geological exploration, oil and gas production, collection, logging and so on. Information about that competition is rather sketchy, because it was secret. It is known that at least UAZ, GAZ, and Azama's machine building plant also took part in it. 110 scale models of cars with hood layout until the end of 2002 and all 2003 ZIL management tried to find opportunities for participation in this project, but at the end of 2003 they gave it up, citing the high workload of engineers and technicians on the project column. These are mock-ups of 4x4 and 6x6 army trucks. What became of the mentioned secret GAB2 competition? It is again unknown, but according to some sources, the developments made in the framework of this competition, GAZ later used to create the notorious armored vehicle Tiger. But we digress and return to ZIL. A few years later, Moscow Mayor Yuri Luzhkov instructed ZIL General Director Konstantin Laptev to return to work on the armored car. It should be reminded that the Moscow government was a shareholder of the Moscow automobile plant at that time. Thus, in the spring of 2008, ZIL proactively returned to the project, not within the framework of the competition, but under a new order of the preliminary design of a family of 4x4 multi-purpose vehicles of 2.5 tons payload class with a similar technical task. At the same time in the order of the ministry in April 2008 the name of the future vehicle, Karatel, was first sounded. The work was carried out at the expense of the plant, with the Ministry of Defense approving the start of design work at ZIL. According to the accepted concept, the search was conducted in two directions, for models with 2-volume and 1-volume bodies. A group of designers took up the task. There were drawings, sketches, variants of vehicle layout in accordance with the Tactical Technical Task, TTZ, issued by the State Automobile Design Bureau. The work was continued in the direction of body layout and creation of scale models 110, after which they started to make a landing model in real scale. This opened the way to the production of a full-size prototype. Cargo and cargo passenger modifications having discussed the created works, two variants were chosen, based on a single chassis, but with differences in appearance and interior. The car with a 2-volume, hood, body of Hummer type was developed by the experienced Lev Samikin. The 1-volume car was the creation of young designers Sviatoslav Sahokian and Andrei Cherkov, as well as their associates, the head of the project engineering company AMO ZIL Sergei Oshirkov and designer Andrei Stepanov. Sergei Oshirkov and designer Andrei Stepanov. This version, with the approval of the customers, was taken as a basis for the production of a running mock-up, and the advantages of the competitive model were practiced on the landing mock-up and in the manufacture of the chassis with independent suspension. Sketches of the 1-volume model made by Sviatoslav Sahokian computer model of the car's several features became key for the 1-volume concept, which received the designation ZIL 3901C1. The main one is the division of the body into 3 zones, the middle one with the possibility of transformation depending on the Purpose of a particular modification and two side ones. In the cabin, the fighters were located facing the windows. Due to the narrowing of the body to the bottom, the probability of damage to the passenger compartment in case of collision with an explosive device was reduced. In addition, the survivability of the vehicle on the battlefield was increased by reducing the area of body panels and glazing, located perpendicular to the trajectories of fire. Finally, the ZIL vehicle was distinguished from the already produced classmates, Hummer, Tiger, Combat, etc., by a bright original appearance. Powerful computer tools minimized the development time of ZIL 3901C1 and made it possible to refuse to build a landing mock-up, as all design issues were implemented on a 3D model and tested directly on a full-size model. The production of parts, components, and the running model as a whole was carried out simultaneously with the design development, i.e. from scratch. The Punisher was given a formidable appearance, the unique, originally formidable appearance of the car with angular facete shapes. Without large straight front and side surfaces was emphasized by a characteristic front with a ferocious grin, which should cause shock and awe in the enemies. At ZIL, the name Klop was attached to the concept for its characteristic outlines. The decisive influence on the combat capability of the ZIL 3901C1 was the placement of the crew. The driver and commander are located right behind the engine on the sides of the frame. 6 soldiers are placed behind them along the longitudinal axis of the vehicle with their backs to each other. The remaining 2, 3 if necessary, sit facing backwards in a row between the rear wheel arches. This arrangement provides all-round visibility, the ability to fight all around the perimeter and quick exit of the vehicle by the entire crew. The Klop doors with horizontal hinging of upper and lower halves provided convenient and quick entry and exit of the crew. They were taken from the Mi-24 helicopter. Opening the upper flaps facilitated pneumatic springs, and the maximum movement of the lower flaps, which in the extreme position served as a footrest, limited the cables. At the rear 3-leaf door, the 2 upper parts with windows hammers opened sideways, and the lower part in the hinged position turned into a gangway. The combat capabilities of the crew were enhanced by the fact that the vehicle could move with the doors open. The prototype was equipped with an advanced video surveillance system, which helped the driver in bad weather and in the dark. The car was equipped with 6 external video cameras. 2 of them served as external front and rear view mirrors, although the traditional mirrors remained. 2 provided a view of blind spots in front of the car and 2 more, in the rear. The images from the cameras were displayed on 3 displays directly in front of the driver. The ballistic protection of the ZIL 3901C1 was done by the Fort Technologia company, which brought the development to the end. Its specialists chose the highest class of protection against small arms, 6A, GOST of 50,963 to 96. This meant that the hull of the vehicle should not be penetrated by armor-piercing incendiary bullet B-32 of 7.62 mm caliber, fired from SVD rifle. However, traditional steel armor was preferred to lighter, but no less durable ceramics and composite nanomaterials. On this basis, the body frame was made of rectangular tubes with the possibility of attaching armor. But on the concept, to speed up the work, panels made of painted plywood were used as cladding. To increase the survivability of the Punisher, the main units and assemblies of its chassis were placed inside the narrow to 800 mm load-bearing frame with spars of constant cross-section along the length. The power unit consisted of a diesel 4 Cummins 4 ISB with an output of 150 horsepower and a manual 5-speed gearbox ZFS 5-42. It was followed by a 2-speed transfer box with a lockable center differential from Kamei Z4326, from which the power went to the axles. With a track of 2,100 mm, borrowed from the same Kamei Z, ZIL's track is 1820 mm. Front and rear leaf springs were installed on the outer sides of the frame on separate brackets. Drum brakes were driven by pneumatic system, and the steering S300V of German company RBL with power steering was responsible for turning the front wheels. Tire size, 12.00 R20, wheel diameter, 1,140 mm. The Klop, or more precisely, Punisher quite fit the requirements. Its length with a wheelbase of 3,800 mm did not exceed 6,330 mm. Width and height were no more than 2,400 and 2,500 mm respectively. Without armor, the vehicle weighed 4,570 kilograms, and its gross weight was no more than 8 tons. Impressive entry and exit angles, more than 45 degrees, and ground clearance of 280 mm provided good cross-country ability. On the highway, Klop accelerated up to 120 km per hour, on dirt roads, up to 60 km per hour, overcame 30-degree hills and moved on snow heaths up to 300 mm deep. The estimated range is 1,000 km. On September 28, 2009, the newly built ZIL 3901C1 was demonstrated to Yuri Luzhkov, who liked the novelty. At the same time, even in the course of preliminary design, the car was of great interest to the Special Purpose Center, SPC, of the FSB. It is no coincidence that the mock-up model was among the first to be made available to the employees of this structure. Having studied the features of the vehicle and evaluated the convenience of accommodation in the cabin, entry and exit from it in standard ammunition, the FSB soldiers appreciated the convenience of boarding and disembarkation and combat use of the Punisher. In turn, the leadership of the department recognized the suitability of the vehicle for combat use, which further gave way to the project Falcatus. Fighters of the FSB Central Defense Forces gave their approval to the Caratel modifications of the Klop could serve as a transportation base for placing various weapons and army equipment. Possible variants of ZIL 3901C1 ZIL's unfulfilled hopes. In October 2009, ZIL 3901C1 was inspected by the first Deputy Minister of Defense. He was then Chief of Armament Vladimir Popovkin. And literally at once, at the end of October, the Armaments Directorate gave ZIL a new tactical and technical assignment for the development of a technical project on the theme of family of new generation tactical vehicles of 2 tons payload class, which, according to their Ministry of Defense, were not to replace the already completed 2.5-ton development, but to complement the range of vehicles Punisher. This time it was necessary to create 2 running prototypes of 4x4 hood layout with the designations 12 and 13. The mass of the first one with a dependent suspension was to be 8 tons, the mass of the second one with independent suspension, 7 tons. The crew of each vehicle, 10 fighters. Sketches of the 2-volume mock-up model No. 2 in camouflage. The defense of the preliminary design of both samples with demonstration of 1/10 scale models took place in the GAP2 on March 3, 2010. Army officials, impressed by what they saw, promised to seek funding for this topic after the cars were built. Inspired by the bright prospects, during 2010 to 2011 ZIL's employees developed and realized their novelties in metal. Sviatoslav Sahokian and his colleagues were engaged in the design of sample No. 2. The 2-volume vehicle with dimensions close to ZIL 3901C1 inherited from it the frame panel body design, crew accommodation scheme, and technical design of side doors. The expressive design emphasized the intimidating appearance of the special vehicle. The chassis was seriously modernized. For rational placement of units and assemblies inside and outside the load-bearing frame and optimization of power lines routing with the same wheelbase and track as the Klop, the sample No. 2 was equipped with integral space crossbars, instead of tubular, as well as developed front and rear subframes. The steel fuel tank was replaced by a fiberglass tank for 230 liters. Design of the load-bearing frame with integral space crossmembers and subframes increased cross-country ability and mobility were provided by 210 horsepower diesel engine Cummins 6 ISB E3, manual 6-speed gearbox ZF6S1000 TO, transfer case ZF VG750 with lockable symmetrical differential and driving hypoid axles ZIL with extended to 2100 mm track. In general, they have worked out the installation of 4 types of engines in combination with 3 versions of transmissions. We are talking about the mentioned Cummins 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder versions of the domestic engine YAM Z530, manual 5-speed gearbox, ZFS 5-42 Eco-Lite, 6-speed manual gearbox ZF6S100 TO Eco-Lite, and 6-speed automatic 6AS1000 to AS-Tronic Lite. Not excluding the possibility of installing a ZF transfer case, ZIL engineers studied the options of using their own designs and units from CAMAZ, as well as drive axles. Technical solutions, not typical for the previous models of the plant, were the cable transmission drive, floor pedal unit, longitudinal arms of the rear suspension, removable driver's seat, twin shock absorbers on each wheel, which later were planned to be replaced by single ones from MAZ. The dependent suspension with small leaf springs and increased to 284 mm wheel travel improved the smoothness of the vehicle. Ground clearance is 260 mm. Rated maximum speed on the highway, 139 km per hour, on dirt roads, at least 80 km per hour. Model number 3, on which L. Samikin's group was working, according to the technical specifications. Samikin's group worked on it. According to the design specification, it turned out to be not only lighter, but also more compact than its brethren, its wheelbase, 3,350 mm, and length, 5,050 mm. The vehicle was conceived as a frame chassis with armored cab for mounting passenger and cargo bodies, as well as all sorts of special additions. In the troop version, 10 soldiers were located in the cabin in the classical way, when all soldiers sit facing forward. Aggregate base is unified with that of the Klop, but with the possibility of installing a 185 horsepower engine. For layout reasons, the main gears and driveshafts were located inside the load-bearing frame of constant cross-section. The transverse drive shafts of the drive wheels passed through holes in the vertical walls of the spars. Each wheel was equipped with an independent electronically controlled suspension adjustable in stiffness and height, including cross arms, air cylinders, and shock absorbers. Ground clearance varied from 180 to 555 mm, which gave the car undeniable advantages when driving both on the highway and off-road. Another innovation was disc brakes on all wheels with hydropneumatic drive. The tire size is 335, 80R20. Still, the role of the favorite in the Punisher family was assigned to the Model No. 4, which was developed according to the technical specifications of CJSC Fort Technologia. The multi-purpose special vehicle, named Falcatus, in honor of the curved Celtic sword, was a further development of the ZIL 3901C1, sample No. 1 inch, but with the possibility of real armor. Its design is close to the Klop, only the front, hood, surface of the body was improved, with the specification of the angle of inclination of the windshields to improve driver visibility. Also improved ergonomics in terms of ease of entry and exit, the location of controls, slightly modified the frame and exterior body. Panels for the integration of armor. Heavier up to 10 tons, the vehicle picked up a turbo-diesel Cummins engine with an output of 350 horsepower, assisted by a manual 6-speed gearbox ZF and transfer case with drive axles from KMZ 4326. The front and rear suspensions are dependent, lever spring with longitudinal reaction rods. By the end of 2010, ZIL had completed construction of the chassis of Model No. 2 and half of its body, as well as almost completely manufactured the chassis of Model No. 3. And then, the money ran out. Yuri Luzhkov, the owner and benefactor of AMOZIL, was out of business, and Sergei Sabinin, who replaced him, had no enthusiasm for the theme of the Punisher. Therefore, the work was cancelled. In fact, the Ministry of Defense refused 2 promising vehicles, realizing that ZIL would not be able to fulfill the order due to its poor situation. The Falcatus project was luckier. Its realization was continued by Fort Technologia, which acquired all the rights to this object. The car was commissioned by the Federal Security Service of the Federal Security Service, and the contractor was Sviatoslav Sahokian and his studio Sahokian design. Based on the original concept of the Punisher, the new vehicle was redesigned, abandoning the original doors in favor of traditional doors with vertical hinges. The first model appeared in 2012, and a couple of years later, after a cycle of testing and fine-tuning, its serial production was launched. We can say that in terms of transmission and running gear, Falcatus is less advanced than the unrealized ZIL developments, but in terms of the body, not at all. The car is secret, and there is not much data on it. It is known that the Class 6A armored vehicle is based on the chassis of the Rally KMZ 4911 Extreme, 4x4. The length of the model is 6.5 meters, height, 2.5 meters. The troop compartment can accommodate 10 soldiers. The armored vehicle with GVW of 15.4 tons is accelerated to a speed of 160 km per hour by diesel engine TMZ7 E846 with an output of 730 HP paired with a 12-speed automatic ZF. From time to time, these vehicles are spotted in different regions of Russia. In 2015 in Tatarstan, in 2017 in Sevastopol. It is not known how many of them are made, but they are made piece by piece under a special order of the FSB Central Defense Forces. And the current contract with the manufacturer implies the assembly of about 100 vehicles. Falcatus is designed for special operations. Its combat tasks, according to official data, include overcoming dense enemy fire, breaking through the perimeter, delivery of a landing group to a given position, covering the task force and evacuation. For road observation, there are 3 rather large armored windows in the frontal plate of the hull. For a side view are smaller panes of glass. In the sides, including the doors, there are elongated windows of smaller size. One more glass is located in the aft door. Below the side and aft windows are loopholes for firing personal weapons. In the roof above the troop compartment is a round hatch. A machine gun is already being installed on it. It is not excluded that in the future other weapons will be mounted on this place. Judging by the images that appear from time to time in social networks, no later than the middle of 2018 Falcatus, if we can say so, has undergone a restyling, small changes in appearance, including the characteristic red grille. Whether they affected the technical part, it is not known for sure. In conclusion, the transformation of the ZIL from a symbol of Soviet automotive prowess to a covert FSB armored vehicle illustrates the complex interplay between industry, innovation, and national security. What began as a project to revitalize a dying brand evolved into a strategic asset, showcasing how necessity can drive unexpected developments in technology and design. As we reflect on this journey from Klop to Falcatus, we gain insight into the hidden narratives that shape our understanding of military and industrial evolution. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of a fascinating chapter in automotive and security history.